Christmas Always Comes, written by Jackie French and illustrated by Bruce Whatley. A great combination. These two have done a number of books together, and this one is another successful one. It's a great story. Quite a long one, so stick with it. Beautiful words and illustrations that really complement each other and sort of highlight the true meaning of Christmas. Christmas Always Comes, written by Jackie French, illustrated by Bruce Whatley, and published by Angus Robertson. Christmas Always Comes. It was a dusty journey down the drought bare road verges that Christmas Eve to find water for the cattle. "When will we see our Christmas tree?" demanded Joey. "You can't have a Christmas tree droving the long paddock," said Ellie, hugging Brownie. "There's always a tree at Christmas," said Joey, "with red and gold decorations and tinsel, and Santa finds everyone." "Hey up!" yelled Dad behind them, rounding up the stragglers. Old Blossom smelt the water first. The creek had shrunk to puddles, but it would have to do. Dad gave a weary smile as the thirsty cattle pushed forward. "No travelling tomorrow. We wouldn't have time to get to the next waterhole after the mob have all had a drink here." "Of course we can't travel tomorrow," agreed Joey. "It's Christmas." "There has to be water and grass for the cattle. Cows have Christmas too." "Moo," approved Blossom. But Mum's eyes looked worried. It was dark when they finished watering all the cattle. The stars shone like Christmas candles. "Christmas pudding tomorrow," said Joey, eating his cold meat and damper. "And presents." "Shh! Don't let Mum or Dad hear," whispered Ellie. "There's no shops or money to buy presents or sultanas for pudding." "Silly! There are always presents at Christmas," said Joey. He had already hung up his and Ellie's socks for Santa to fill. "Moo," said Blossom, hunting for grass in the dust-dappled dirt. Sunrise was a pale pink garland when Joey shook Ellie awake. "Blossom found our Christmas tree," he whispered. "Cows don't find Christmas trees," said Ellie sleepily. "They can at Christmas," said Joey. Ellie ran after Joey down the dry creek bed into the gully. "Come and see our Christmas tree," called Joey. The tree had golden fruit and green leaves. The parrots glowed green and red in its branches. Tall flowers bloomed gold and red. It was the most beautiful Christmas tree Ellie had ever seen. "I told you there'd be a Christmas tree," said Joey, as an old man appeared over the hill. "Moo," agreed Blossom, her mouth full of grass. "Merry Christmas, sir," yelled Joey. "Look at our beautiful Christmas tree." The old man's shirt was frayed. He looked as if he had forgotten how to smile. "That's my apricot tree," he shouted. "And this is private property." "We're sorry," said Ellie. "Come on, Joey. Help me move Blossom." "Merry Christmas, sir." Joey sat on a large flat stone. "It's not really a Christmas tree, is it?" "No," said Ellie gently. "Has Santa filled our socks with presents?" "He might have missed them this year," said Ellie. "But I wanted a proper Christmas," cried Joey. A really, truly Christmas. It is a proper Christmas, said Ellie firmly. We don't need a tree or presents or a pudding. We've got each other. We'll make it a wonderful Christmas. The old man turned and looked at Ellie. That's what my Rosie said. Our first Christmas here. The house was half built, the horse was lame and the baby due. My Rosie just smiled. This is the most wonderful Christmas in the world, she told me. Who's Rosie? Asked Joey. The old man pointed to the stone. Rosie was my wife. I planted the tree for her. My Rosie loved apricots. I'm so sorry, Mr. Darcy, said Ellie softly. We shouldn't have disturbed Rosie's Christmas. Mr. Darcy lifted his chin. I know what my Rosie would have wanted this Christmas. She'd have wanted kids eating apricots from her tree again. My Rosie had a heart as big as the world. She'd have given the world Christmas if she could. She would have said, It's been too many years since you wished anyone a Merry Christmas, Bill Darcy, and it's time you remembered how to do it. Take all the apricots you want. Take your mum some flowers. Moo, said Blossom. Mr. Darcy smiled. And let your cattle have green grass for Christmas too. No one said anything for a while. More parrots flew onto the tree. Blossom chomped the grass. Thank you, Mr. Darcy, said Ellie at last. I wonder what Santa brought us, said Joey. Santa can't always come when you're droving, Mr. Darcy said cautiously. Santa always comes, said Joey, his mouth full of apricot. Just like there's always a Christmas tree. Move on, Blossom. Moo, said Blossom, treading back up the gully. Can your mum roast chicken? Mr. Darcy asked suddenly. Mum can cook anything, said Joey, though the emu was a bit tough. You tell your mum there's a couple of young roosters she can cook at the house, and pumpkins and potatoes and peas in the garden. The only thing I don't have for you is a Christmas pudding. There's always a pudding at Christmas, said Joey confidently, and custard. You help your dad bring the cattle down here while dinner cooks. Tell him I reckon there's enough feed for them for a few weeks. Mr. Darcy tipped his hat to Ellie. Merry Christmas, girlie, he said gruffly. The land was gold, not brown as Ellie and Joey, Blossom and Brownie climbed out of the gully. Diamonds glittered from the cobwebs on the barbed wire. Merry Christmas, Mummy! Ellie held out the flowers. There's grass and a pool down the hill, and Mr. Darcy says, Santa Claus has been, yelled Joey. He dumped the apricots into the cart. Merry Christmas, Dad. Joey grabbed his bulging sock while Ellie told their parents about Mr. Darcy's offer. Santa had left 2 kites and 2 penny whistles, and some of the macadamia nuts looked just like the ones that had been growing along the road a few weeks ago. Santa Claus left something else too, Mum said quietly, looking at Brownie. The dog lay under the cart now, curled around her newly born puppies, each one round and fat and beautiful. Dad spat out a couple of apricot stones. Something was bubbling in the billy. Christmas pudding, said Dad. Your Auntie Anne sent the ingredients for us to pick up when we passed through Braidwood last month. We've got to have a pudding at Christmas. With custard, agreed Joey. Mr. Darcy said he doesn't have a Christmas pudding, offered Ellie. Mum grinned. He'll have one this year with custard after we milk Blossom. Ellie and Joey wore their new Christmas shirts, which looked a bit like one of Mum and Dad's cut down, and their new plaited leather belts to Christmas dinner at Mr. Darcy's house. There were carols around the piano and presents wrapped in old brown paper and roast rooster and the best custard anyone had tasted. "See," said Joey, his mouth full of pudding. "I told you there were always presents and pudding and a tree at Christmas." "I reckon any Christmas can be the best one in the world," said Mr. Darcy softly. He gazed out the window. Outside, the sun shone gold on drought-bold hills as purple rain clouds gathered like castles in the sky. The end.